Welcome to Thinking Green. I'm Rana, and here with me tonight is Clint Slowik. I got it right? Who is from the Marquis Gallery, but is going to be talking primarily about the idea of forming an arts council in New London, which almost seems like a no-brainer because arts have been sort of at the heart of our city for a long time. I guess, well, welcome, but I guess maybe you can start out talking about what your background is and how you got to be doing what you're doing.
Well, sure. So I'll try to make it as brief as possible, but it's.
We have 50 minutes.
Oh, okay,
so
then I'll take my time.
we can just mosey through.
Okay, well, so I was born in 1983. But no, so essentially I've always enjoyed art, but I'm sure if you talk to any artist, most of them will say that. From a very young age. My family was very supportive. Actually, it was kind of the opposite of the stereotype where people are like, oh, don't go into art. I was actually the one who decided to first go into, computer science and engineering at UConn. And so I went through that for 3 years, kind of switched gears and went and switched to business and got my degree in business entrepreneurship and management. Then I taught English in Japan for a year, got a taste for teaching. When I came back, I wanted to pursue teaching, but not necessarily in the business realm, because there was a lot of fast track programs that allowed you to, if you had the degree, you just followed the program and you could teach K through 12 kind of thing. But I wanted to do something I was more passionate about. So I went and decided, after a few years of substitute teaching and things of that nature, went back for my next degree at Eastern Connecticut State University for in arts. And so I double concentrated there for drawing and painting and sculpture. So it all kind of coalesced into being able to, run the a gallery space. I worked my first time coming down to New London in a professional sense with 2012. And one of my former professors was opening his own gallery in the Harris building, actually. And he was also running a residency program that brought in some well-established Chinese artists and things of that nature. So from then on, we were working together doing that for a bit. We moved out of New London briefly and to find a new space, came back where we found the space we are presently. And I went ahead and took that over and turned it into Marquis Gallery in 2014, October 2014. And so that's the long and short of it.
So what kind of things do you do at the Marquis Gallery?
Okay, so we do, let's see. Well, we're a commercial gallery space, but we have a foot in the community. We believe in representing artists, helping them build a career in their passion, which is art. And so that's our primary objective. But that being said, we also host community events. We like to help in promoting and getting more traction for nonprofit organizations, especially ones that utilize art to help other individuals. We also bring in international artists. We've had a few international artist shows, group exhibitions, community shows. We've shown Connecticut college students, for example. What else? We also house, since 2016, the New London Art Student League. So they're I think they were founded, from my understanding, they were founded just as World War II was starting, and then took a hiatus during that period and then started back up. And so they've been going that entire time. They had an endowment. And so in 2016, I realized they were running out. So I approached them and said, we have this studio space and we're looking to, bring something in that will be beneficial, to all parties. And they were, kind of strapped, and with the age of the internet, a lot more people are learning via online means and things. So there's not as much of the traditional sense workshops. And so that's something I really believe in, and a lot of really talented artists believe in having that community of artists. So we wanted to keep that alive, so we host them for free, and I teach workshops there every Wednesday night from 6 to 9 p.m., so if anyone's interested. And they're a wonderful group, a variety of ranges. We usually do figurative live model as well as personal projects and still life and plein air, painting out in the landscape, and anything from traditional media and representational art to abstract, so everything in between. And we're looking to. Are you tired of me talking to you?
No, keep on going.
So we do. We're also looking to bring in more life to the space as well. And within that realm, similar to the Arts Council, we like to. One of my philosophies or principles is bringing all forms of art, music and performance and dance and written spoken word, and as well as visual arts, of course. And so that's what we're trying to cultivate and bring, if there's, start some other programs for other types of artists that can maybe utilize the space and bring added life to it, and in a plethora of different mediums.
Now, I was wondering, are there particular challenges now? I've been reading about the struggles of the Lime Art Academy, and in terms of art education, it seems as though the arts, I think, are fundamental to life, but when people think about education and the real fundamentals and feel strapped, they care more about kids learning arithmetic and reading rather than art.
Right. And that is, one of the unfortunate aspects of the arts is that they are usually the first on the chopping block, which is terrible. I mean, I am biased, but there's been countless studies that show the benefits of art, both for mental cognitive abilities as well as creative thinking, which is paramount in business and engineering and any of these other schools. And so the arts really benefit everything. They help tie everything together and enhance them. So to remove those, it's really an unfortunate circumstance and, from my understanding, a misunderstanding of what art brings to the table. It's not just beautiful pictures to look at. There's a lot of depth, and as well as emotional expression and means of stress release and allowing people to engage and communicate if they're maybe more introverted. It allows people to express themselves, which is also therapeutic. I mean, I could go on and on about all the things that art does.
I totally agree. Before I retired, I was a preschool teacher for a long time, and I think I could not have actually survived being a public school teacher in the current climate that just wants to take all the joy out of learning things, and both graphic arts and music and dramatic arts, they're all really, in a way, more fundamental because you'll learn all the other stuff through the arts, even if you're not directly drilled in the other stuff.
Right. And not only that, but it's a lot, I find children and adults retain a lot more by using these more creative means of learning. And again, it is just, more fun. Well, again, that's subjective. I mean, there are people who are really into, all the other, with the other 3 R's and so forth. But as far as I'm concerned, it can be utilized to help individuals who have a different way of thinking, the right brain versus left brain, analytical versus more creative and emotional thinking. And so it's one of those things where it's a different side of the same coin. And I would like to see, and that's also, again, one of the reasons why when I first moved down here was hoping to get an arts council going, because the arts just really benefit community down to the individual and allow for these opportunities to bring people together, learn, express, and enjoy what everyone.
Now, what exactly is an arts council, and are there other towns nearby that have them that serve as sort of a template?
That's a great question. While there's certainly art council, I'm sure there's one in Hartford, New Haven, the larger areas. And what an arts council does, it can vary between different councils too. They kind of have to make their own list of what their goals are. But in general, it exists to act as first a bridge between the individual artists and art organizations and the city, and the community, as well as a means to, at its core, help individual artists have a voice, help arrange and cultivate interesting arts-related events and organizations, helps to foster a state of kind of lost track of what how do I, but it fosters a creative environment. It allows artists who maybe otherwise would be overlooked. It allows them to have a place to come, find out about events, have opportunities, whether it be art grants and things of that nature, public art, creating a public art space, and just facilitating things for artists and art organizations.
Now, you mentioned that you've been interested in the Art Council idea for a while. What kind of made this start to coalesce in New London?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, so let's see. So at its core, when Sustainable CT started, one of their rosters, we can talk about them a little bit here, but one of the key points to the Sustainable CT initiative revolves around having an arts council, actually. And there's other artists in the area, most specifically Casey Moran. He runs Spark Makerspace.
Right.
He's been a local area artist and pillar of the community for quite some time, ever since I've been here anyways. And so we talked and discussed the idea of bringing that forward. And now with the Sustainable CT initiative, it's kind of a great opportunity to really bring it to the forefront, because it not only serves the arts community and the arts and cultural community at large, it also can help benefit the city with this initiative.
Yeah, and in fact, I looked up Sustainable CT because although I know a lot of people on it, I didn't really know everything they were doing.
It's a
lot. It's a lot. It's like, there are action categories that include things from natural resource stewardship to, transportation, to public services, to health and well-being, to energy efficiency, different community impacts. But the arts part, the subcategories, I guess, were, to map the cultural assets, to support the arts and creative culture, develop creative placemaking, and provide an arts and culture program for youth. And it seems like, listening to you, that the Art Council, especially the second and fourth items to support the arts culture and to provide youth programming, are things that the Art Council would certainly play a part in.
Right. And there are just a tremendous, that's one of the things I fell in love with New London in particular. It has so much raw potential to be this incredible New England bastion, and it already has so many art and creative people in the area, as well as, allowing for wonderful opportunities for public art and these programs. And, that's something else we wanted to work with, particularly when I partnered up with the New London Art Student League, finding means to have and keep alive these opportunities to teach individuals from young to old with the arts, and again, going back to what I was talking about, how art benefits people on emotional and psychological levels, and it'd be great to use that to help young individuals, maybe underprivileged individuals, people who suffer from traumatic experiences, people who suffer from abuse and other things, as well as the elderly and everyone in between, right? And having the Arts Council would be a great opportunity to help support the programs, because there are also a lot of programs. I know Hygienic has a youth program, and
probably
other,
Expressiones
does.
Yep.
Oh, they absolutely do. And I think even the library has some things going. There's a little sparse here and there, So what an art council can function as is a means to bring that all together and see how can we benefit from each other and work together and really amplify what we already have going on.
Even beyond the arts, it seems as though that's often the challenge, especially in a town like New London, where there are a lot of creative people, trying to have some kind of coordination among everything, because it seems as though the weak point is often how do you find out what's happening? How can you find out what's happening that's most appropriate for you to get involved in?
Right.
And we lack those clearinghouses of action that everyone is kind of plugged into.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned Casey Moran, and I was wondering if the Arts Council has had any direct dealings with the Spark Maker space, or is that just one of the pieces of our
yeah, they're
local
definitely
puzzle?
one of the pieces. We want to our goals as an arts council, when discussing it with Casey, at its core, we want to have something that acts as a voice for all artists in the light that they can be included, brought together, and use that as a means to help foster opportunities, help protect from things such as, imagine in a worst case scenario, an overly gentrified kind of scenario where, and that has happened and historically happens. What happens is, all the artists and creatives move into a space, so they make it creative, they become the heart and soul of an area, they make it hospitable, friendly, because they traditionally also move into these lower income areas.
Right.
And
because there isn't a lot of money in being an artist.
Right. Not unless you really hit the top, and then you can just, just write your name, and then it's.
Yeah, you're lucky as an artist if that happens before you die.
Yeah, and there's some lucky artists, but so we want to hopefully try and be able to foster that in this area because there's tremendous talent, and so being that always they're usually again on the chopping block because developers will see that things are affordable, really affordable, so they come in, buy it, and then they can either swap it out with department stores and high-income housing, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Except for the displacement
right,
part.
except for the displacement. So the hope is that then, in my mind, I would love to see it so that it becomes kind of a unifying quality, that you keep the heart and soul, the creatives, the visual artists, musicians, performers, writers, singers, dance artists, and also be able to cultivate an area that high-income people are attracted to, and also come along because they're the ones that buy the art and consume the performances and things of that nature. So it goes hand in hand, but a lot of the times it gets overzealous in that you drive out the artist because people get dollar signs and they say, oh, well, let's raise the rent, and so then they have to move on, and then it just ends up another big shopping center type scenario.
Yes, and I'm glad that New London is participating in the Sustainable Connecticut because perhaps it will help. One of the things I've been involved in somewhat is the Emerging Community Land Trust, and one of the concerns that it's taking up is how can we provide affordable housing and more home ownership without displacing people.
Right.
And in the downtown, with the, I'm sure it's already happened that I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago, just about when the Hygienic opened, there was a tour of artists' lofts all along State Street. And, there were artists renting, these 250 square foot apartments for really dirt cheap.
Right.
And I don't know if that exists anymore.
Yeah, it's on its way. It's kind of in a middle area, I'd say, from what I've heard from other artists and younger individuals who, creatives that come in to the area, that it's getting harder to afford those same spaces. And unfortunately, even since I've been here, again, one of the other big key components that I really loved about New London is there were so many, galleries and studios and these creative spaces for people to go. And unfortunately, even the past couple of years, we're losing or transitioning certain galleries. I know the Firehouse Gallery, for example, I think is transitioning to another organization, MS-17, which was an awesome space. Luckily, we're retaining some of the artists, and that's the other fear I have is once you start doing that, we've lost a few incredible creative individuals too, who's heading up spaces to move on to other opportunities because they had a certain vision or dream of the area, and it hasn't necessarily come to fruition. I've heard of other professionals who've stopped by the gallery and say, yeah, we've been here this long, and it's just hard to get traction, and so we're moving on to other places. So we want to try to retain as much of that as possible, but not again to forsake rising up and bringing in people who have that higher income, but fostering an area that can bring it together again.
Yeah, well, in general, I think, a community to be healthy does need to have, all kinds. And I hope that some of the new housing that is being created will appeal to some of the higher income people so that there will be enough, housing around to not drive people out.
Right. Well, that's another beautiful thing about New London. It is kind of a hub, and I usually use this comparison. It's the quintessential New England town, but it has an edge to it. It has that spark of energy that is attractive and interesting and quirky and unique that is just like you want to be a part of it. There's so much going on and such a wonderful and warm community of accepting people of all types that, I would want, I hope to move. I don't live here yet, but I would like to at some point, buy a house.
It does suck you in, let me tell you.
Yeah.
We moved to New London in 1994, and we had lived in Waterford for like 15 years, and we had lived in other parts of the country. And New London does have a way of drawing people in. It has an edge in a good way, but it also
non-threatening edge. If that.
So it's an interesting spot that way. So what kind of timeline, I guess, is the Arts Council looking at? How long do you feel like the building of this entity is going to take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So May 3rd, which is a Friday, at noon, we're having our first official kind of get-together open to the public. Any artists or organizations that want to come and participate, it'll be at Marquee Gallery, so any artists, interested can
and
come
we have
on
a flyer,
through.
so I will actually hold it up, and at some point, maybe we can...
I know Southeastern Connecticut Coalition, Wendy Berry, Deb Matheson, put this together for us and are helping to facilitate because they're incredible. And I know they'll have it up on their site. I'll have it up on the Marquee Gallery site and Facebook page and send it out as much as we can. And as you can see on here, there's like a little RSVP at culturesect.org. So do that if you're interested.
So how many people can you fit into your gallery?
Well, if we're including standing room, we can probably get, I don't want to throw a number out there that isn't up to code. But, I'd say 50 or so. We have 25 chairs and some bench seating, and then after that, there's at least that much, if not more, for standing room. And I mean, we've had 70 to 100 people at openings from time to time.
Yeah, so it isn't just going to be a very small group.
No, well, we hope not. We'd like to get as much input as we want. We want it to be an inclusive element that brings everyone together, because it can also, without going too far into it, it can be intimidating for new artists, new art organizations. If you don't do your due diligence, that's the other thing I recognized as building up Marquee Gallery, is that it's hard to figure out, okay, who do I reach out to? Where are the opportunities? Who do I talk to? Where do I get together? There are great, openings and events from time to time, but if you're not kind of on the inside of a particular group, it's hard to necessarily break in or get as much traction as other organizations or other individuals. So we want something that's acts as a means to bring everyone to the table and share ideas, collaborate. When one group has an event, there's no reason other organizations or groups can't have an opening or an event or a performance, because that really will entice people to come down. And I know that from sitting with and talking to the roundtable discussions we've had with SECT and other organizations is, people at Electric Boat and other places are looking for things to do downtown, but they don't want to have to wait or scavenge
Right.
around. When they want to come out, they want to come out and they hope that there's something there. And so it'd be nice to provide that, and being able to get on the same page. It doesn't have to be overly elaborate or convoluted in any way, which we found was an unfortunate circumstance. We attempted another art walk, like you had talked, like a studio visit thing.
Right.
We tried that a couple of years ago, and immediately it broke into multiple groups thinking, okay, we want to run it this way, well, we want to run it this way, and trying to bring people together in that realm, when certain people want to run it one way and others would like to run it a different way. Again, no one's necessarily wrong, but all it had to be was, okay, this is the day, everyone just be open.
Yeah.
Open, it doesn't have to be more complicated. So in the initial stages, that's what we'd like to see, is providing these events and these opportunities for everyone to just be on board and have an open line of communication and come to the table and make New London live up to the potential that it has.
Well, in the years that I've lived here, it always seems as though there are a lot of artists of all the different disciplines in town, but it hasn't been consistent in terms of like the kind of support or widespread, publicity or level of activity. It's kind of, I know when the Hygienic was saved and and restored, a lot of little galleries sprung up, and some are still there, and some aren't.
Right.
So it does seem like it would be useful to have at least one constant presence to be sort of, the bedrock.
Right. And again, one that is, for all sakes and purposes, a neutral party. And the only reason I say that is because it is very easy to get caught up in, this organization does this or this organization does that, and why bother facilitating new or upcoming organizations when, as I see it, and what I'd love to see is New London be seen as an artist hub. Like, I'd love to see it, not just visual arts, but performance and music, and I keep saying the written and spoken word, and because it has all that, and it's beautifully positioned too. I hate, it's, if you hop on the train, it's about equidistance to Boston, equidistance to New York, Long Island, Providence, it's New Haven, Hartford. You can get to New London from all these places very efficiently.
And as a transportation hub, it's just amazing.
Right.
Because, you don't have to get in a car on the highway. In fact, people can take the ferry from Block Island or Long Island or Fisher's Island.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're right within, stone's throw of all these incredible places that, it'd be wonderful to see more influx into New London for events and for these different creative avenues that we want to bring to the surface. And I think it's perfectly possible. But again, we need to have a collaborative mindset, and a mindset where it's like, okay, no one has to fall in line in any sort of way. It's just, let's all just be open, and whoever can do this the best, we can, create subcommittees to run certain events, and then just, again, offer a means for individual artists and new incoming organizations and the like to have a place to, a support system and a means to take advantage of whatever opportunities there might be in the area.
Now, your background is more, with the visual arts. So how do you envision the Arts Council working with, like, the local music scene or, drama or theater? And they all do exist here, but I don't know if
definitely.
they interact with each other at all.
And that's, again, so this meeting, I can throw out some of my ideas and thoughts. This meeting is to kind of, so everyone can throw in some ideas and concerns and kind of go from there. My idea, what I'd like to see is, something of a round table where each organization is represented. The city has a liaison, the Southeastern Connecticut Coalition has a liaison, and then also what I would envision is each type of arts have a representative. It could be, elected or just kind of voluntary, who can act again as a liaison to that group of that type of art. So say the musicians of New London would have someone who would come or at a round table, say, and putting together, because again, doing all this together is amazing. We've had live musicians in our space for openings before, and it really brings it to life. And when Make Music Day came out last year, that was huge in New London. I mean, there's just so much tremendous talent of every type. And I'd love to see, just thinking of my space, I'm being biased and greedy here, but I'd love to see dancers and poetry readings and a writers group and musicians, of course, and performance and things of that nature. I'm actively, personally reaching out. So having this organization where, everyone kind of throws in, and so people can say, okay, I really want to have a poetry reading, say, and then I reach out to, say, the Arts Council and say to the representative, whoever does, poetry and written type stuff, who would be interested? Would you be interested in doing like a little put together thing? So I provide the space, you put together the event, we work together, collaborate. That's what I'd love to see. And that's how I see everyone kind of coming together, not just one type of arts, but all the arts and cultural aspects even.
Now, I have to tell you, had mentioned plain art painting. I'm involved with the Riverside Park.
Oh, yeah.
It was something I got sucked into many years ago when it was threatened. And we have a festival once a year in September, and we do invite plein air artists.
Right.
And they, I don't know, we usually get between 10 and 20. The weather is usually beautiful, and then most years we've managed to have some kind of exhibit space for them. And, most of the artists that come to this, it's funny, are not really based in New London.
Right. And so I might use this as an opportunity to kind of prove a point. Like, this is the first time I'm hearing about this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I try to keep my ear to the street and hearing what opportunities there are for artists. But not
yeah, no, seriously, I agree.
But that's what I mean. If there was a central hub where, if you have an arts-related event and you bring it to the Arts Council and the Arts Council posts it and, helps promote it, so all the artists in the area would know about it, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, the New London artists, the ones who are Mark Patnode's friends, know about it.
Right.
And no one else does.
Right, yeah.
And once again, we have a couple people who come from, even Rhode Island, some who come from, the Connecticut shoreline. But it always strikes me every year that we have very few New London-based artists doing this.
Right.
And, Riverside Park has, we started this actually to change the public's perception of the park because it kind of had a bad rap.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the case for New London. It has that kind of stigma still. It's hard, but it's better than... Yeah. Far better than people.
Yeah, it's really not deserved. Not that there aren't any problems, but the reputation was not deserved. But one of our strategies was get artists. They could paint Groton across the river. There were woodland areas. There were rocks.
That's a beautiful idea.
Areas.
Now that I know about it.
Yeah, so you'll be on the mailing list.
Yeah, please,
now as
please,
we,
absolutely.
Organize it. But one of the things we do is invite artists, and we, feed them lunch, and
I'll definitely
and
do
we
that
try to have a space. The first couple of years we did it, the display space was the train station. Actually, it had a lot of wall space, and the previous owner, Todd O'Donnell, who had owned it for several years until about 5 years ago, just let us hang the paintings in the train station. So they were seen for about a month by anyone who who took the train.
Right.
And then when there isn't any wall space in the train station anymore, they've rearranged, their
Yeah.
priorities have changed. But we actually did have it in the Lighthouse Gallery one year.
Mm-hmm.
We had it in the Main Street office. We had it in the Guard. We've moved around a little bit,
Right.
but we're very open to. We have an opening, and some artists sell. A few paintings get sold.
Yeah, well, that's great. Every opportunity for artists in that light is wonderful. And
Yeah.
before I get back on that topic, I was just thinking, that's another opportunity for an arts council, is that not only does it work between city and artists and artists and artists, but also other businesses and artists. I also
Right.
think it's beautiful seeing local area artists and talent, not just visual, but, music,
Yeah.
et cetera, in all these wonderful downtown businesses, and even, empty storefronts and things of that nature, having public art. New London has generally been very receptive to all that. And having those opportunities to do that. Another thing I would like to see is, from an arts council, is then we have a definitive group that can kind of help to facilitate public art, restore it in proper manners, make sure we have opportunities to bring in funding for those types of
And New London, for its size, I mean,
endeavors.
it's not like Philadelphia, but
Right.
there's a fair bit of public art here.
Oh, I mean, tremendous. I mean, if I'm sure, I haven't done the math, of course, but from my understanding, the just amount, again, of gallery spaces, public art, and this size of a space, I mean, it's incredible. It's a lot.
And it's almost all very near the downtown. So
Right.
it isn't even over the whole 5.5 square miles of New London. It's over that like 1 square mile in the middle of town.
And it's beautiful. I mean, it really is. So I'd love to see just more of that cultivated, and having it in a way so artists all have the opportunity to try and throw their hat into the ring and be a part of that, or if they have an idea or find means to afford it, grants and things of that nature, and having a central organization that can help facilitate that would be perfect. And but yeah, and back to the point on finding out about these opportunities, even from my own perspective, I try to keep, again, as much as I can while running the business, keep up to date on what's going on. But when we had a couple of years ago, I'll use, again, myself as an example, the NEFA conference, which is a huge New England arts conference that happens annually in different spots, and Wendy was able to bring it down to New London. But consequently, I didn't find out about it until it had already been planned and done. And then I was like, oh, wow, I mean, that's a great opportunity, but I would have liked to have known and been a part of that from the ground
Yeah.
up, not just finding out about it after everything was said and done, and figuring out how can I kind of shuffle in there with the
Yeah.
rest of that.
You'd think we'd have, with the internet, we'd have
Right.
gotten better at that. But, when I mentioned the plein air painting at Riverside Park, there's also a group on Alewife Cove, a kind of a relatively new conservancy group that's working on the Cove area and the Ocean Beach area. And it's in both the Waterford, New London side. And they've approached us, at Riverside Park, and with some interest of also bringing landscape painters there,
Right.
having plein air. And we've talked about, well, we could have a joint exhibit,
Oh, yeah.
scenes from New London's coastline, north and south city.
Right.
But it has never really gotten anywhere. I think it's even harder, an arts council might help facilitate partnerships that don't have to be really complicated.
Right.
But
Yeah, just even collaborative efforts in that light.
Yeah.
And having a central point. I mentioned the NEFA conference. I don't want it to sound like,
Yeah.
I was left out intentionally. It's hard when you're putting together these huge events to make sure everyone hears, and then you pass it off to other individuals to help spread the word, but then, they're also busy doing things. So having that one place where people know to go, and yeah, with the internet it can be helpful, but then if you trying to keep track of all those things, again, if I had, just speaking for myself or any artist, especially new artists who are moving into the area or new organizations that are starting up in the area had a place that they just knew just one spot, just one spot to find all the information that they needed to know on upcoming events and things of that nature. And then you wouldn't have to worry so much about making sure you got on this person's mailing list and this person's mailing list and on this calendar and this Facebook group and this Facebook. There's so many that it's hard to make sure they all have the same relevant information and make sure people know to go to one of these places. It becomes difficult upkeep because there are so many options that it's hard to know where to go.
It is. Well, looking at this community conversation and, the various co-hosts, now is the Southeast Connecticut Cultural Coalition, is there any one group that's taking the lead, or is it just
well, not specifically. So again, this is something when I was discussing with Casey, we wanted it to be as much of a grassroots kind of thing as possible, in the hands of individual artists, and then facilitated by other organizations and things of that nature. So we wanted to, there are, again, great organizations that are already established, but we wanted a separate entity that could help bring that all together so you don't run the risk of just one particular group taking it and running with it, and then again kind of ending up in that same situation where some people are on the inside, some people don't know, and we want something that everyone just comes to the table, throws out their ideas, figures out a way to collaborate, and then move forward. And that way also it doesn't add any additional strain to any existing organizations that have a lot on their plate already with program planning and other things they have to do. That way, it's kind of a labor of love. You bring the artists and people in the organizations who want to be a part of it. If you don't have the time, then you just, again, I would imagine, tell the Arts Council what your programs are like, and then if you want to participate in something that's being put on or just find ways to facilitate that, then it can happen.
Now, other than the community conversation that's coming up on May 3rd, are there any other upcoming events, like art events, that people who are watching this should know about?
Well, we're going to try to, the next big one that's kind of all-encompassing is Make Music Day. I forget the specific day that it's on. Last year's was incredible. It was a wonderful video. Everyone, a lot of local artists and other businesses and so forth, were able to put together this wonderful day of art. And again, I'd like to see us be able to put together another art and studio walk type scenario, because then that's something that would be, I would imagine, once a month or even once a week. Well, it's a lot once a week, but again, it's one of those things where
I have friends, in Willimantic who had started the third Thursday,
right? Yeah, mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure. I think New London has some things in common with Willimantic, but has its own flavor too.
Right.
So
well, that's where I'm actually around from. So I have that kind of love for the smaller.
That is interesting.
Towns,
yeah. In fact, last week our guest was Jean Dismay, who was one of the founders of the Third Thursday. So yeah. Right. So other than going to this community conversation, I think I'm told I have about 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We have a little bit more.
Okay, 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
If there are people who see this video who are, whether they're artists or musicians or involved in the arts community or just New London community members who want to live in an interesting town,
right.
How would you recommend that they get involved in this sort of thing?
Well, aside from just coming to that, reach out to, you can reach out to me, Marquee Gallery. All my information is on my website, marqueegallery.com. You can reach out to Wendy at the Southeastern Connecticut Cultural Coalition. Any of the organizations, Expressiones, Hygienic, people at the Guard, we try to stay within the, that. Again, it's hard because everyone has their own program schedule and everything that's going on. But, reaching out and saying, yeah, I want to be a part of this. In the early stages where, eventually this would be nice to be a foundation or some, a 501c3 and all that fun stuff so that, you can apply for grants and money to help facilitate more of this. But in the meantime, I see it, when Casey and I were discussing it, we kind of wanted to keep it at that level where, yeah, it's a labor of love. People are coming in and volunteering their time and making this happen and just starting small and help bring everyone to the table. So yeah, reaching out to any of us. I know Casey is super busy, but if you're watching this and you know him, I'm sure he wouldn't be terribly upset if I told you to ask him, and he can send them my way
I
too.
keep trying to get him to come on the show,
Oh, yeah,
and he's just too
wonderful.
busy.
He is, yeah. It's tough, and that's why.
He said, "No, if you come to Spark and you
Right.
film it there, then
Yeah.
you got a shot."
Well, that's a
at
great
it."
idea, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're thinking about when we can do that because
Right.
when they first opened Spark, oh gosh, I guess it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
John
Yeah, it was-
Curran was on the show
Right.
talking about, just the emerging idea, which has grown so much.
Right.
So I guess because I'm not an artist at all, I appreciate living in a city with a lot of art. But what kind of support do artists who come into the community need that they're not getting?
I feel artists thrive the most when there is that sense of community, being able to be connected with other artists. I think that's very important. So again, having a place where you can go and find all the information you need about whatever art-related events and opportunities are going on in the area is great. I mean, I'd hate to say just money, but money is also very helpful. I'd say anyone who wants to support the art, buy some art. It's encouraging for artists, especially emerging artists, younger artists, and it's also a great opportunity to get art for a very reasonable price when artists are young. I personally collect art, even though a lot of my money again goes to the business. But if I have the opportunity, I see a great piece of art, then I make sure I try to add to my collection.
And I'm guessing that includes music too, because
Yes.
artists are so often expected to share their talent for free.
Right. Oh yeah, it is tough, right? I call it death by exposure, where you put your art out there for free in so many places and everyone loves it, and it's really uplifting a space or a community, but then no one's putting their money down towards it, and so it becomes tiresome after a while and difficult for an artist to continue because everything costs money.
Yeah,
Plus,
living.
a lot of the artists that I know that are starting out, they're working, a couple jobs and really working like anyone else, plus trying to find time to develop their artistic talents. And again, the world would be a terrible place without the arts and all of its forms. So yeah, any way you can find, whether it be buying their music, going to see a performance, buying a piece of art, or throwing $5 at a poetry reading to someone who's really touched your soul with their words. Little bits and pieces here. They're not only incredibly helpful in that sense, but they're very encouraging for an artist. Speaking as an artist myself, having someone who loves and appreciates your work and is willing to buy it or help you develop it further is incredible.
Now, one last question, because I think we are down to about 3 minutes.
Okay.
Is this art council is kind of being formed under the auspices of the Sustainable CT. In your view, how does supporting the arts make our city more sustainable?
Well, just from that perspective, again, because there's so many creatives, so much art, what really drew me and draws a lot of people to the area is that aspect. And so what the arts do, again, you find creative opportunities and you develop programs, events, and reasons for people to come downtown. It's wonderful to have a lot of incredible places to eat, places to go have a great drink, places to socialize, but you need that culture, you need that art, because again, when you think about it, why do you want to come out somewhere at any time, right? You want to come out not just to buy something or just to eat something. You want to experience something. And so being able to experience something, whether it's, a visual gallery visit or art kind of walk, or if you're going out and seeing an impromptu performance, whether it be music or dance or, a play, because there's a lot of wonderful playwrights too, experiencing that is an incredible draw to people. That brings people out. That gives them something to come do and see beyond just coming out and having, a dinner or just visiting with friends. And that's what I've heard a lot of too. People want to come out and have something to do in downtown. And the arts as a whole is, in my, again, I'm biased as hell, but, one of what I would say is a really wonderful thing to come out and experience. And it opens your eyes and broadens your horizons, all that fun stuff.
So for anyone who is interested, Friday, May 3rd at the Marquis Gallery, noon to 1 p.m. It's at 74 State Street, and RSVP to culturesect.org. Is that the Cultural Coalition? Or?
Yes, yep, that's the Cultural Coalition's website. We also have a Facebook page that might be on there. If not, it'll be on, I'll try and get that up in the next few days at Marquis Gallery's Facebook. Again, it's just Marquis Gallery, all one word, not Facebook. We'll put up an event, and anyone has questions can reach out to me or Wendy or anyone else involved.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Rana. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and there are some resources that I know about now that I didn't before. So, next week, Greg Stroud from Old Lyme is going to be on the show. He is editor of a new newspaper that will be starting out in Southeast Connecticut, and we'll be talking about that endeavor. So we'll see you then, and thanks again, Clint.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Africa,